Good morning, friends. I'm laughing at myself because that's how I usually greet my animals when I go out to feed them in the morning. Good morning, chickens and bunnies. Good morning, quails and kitties. I don't know, maybe I'm feeling warm and fuzzy feelings towards all you fine people out there in YouTube land this morning. And honestly, it feels good to laugh and feel a little silly this morning because it's been a heavy couple of weeks for me. Um, I've been in a lot of challenging heart and mental spaces over the last 2 weeks, and there's been a variety of reasons of that, but one of them is as we approach the 1 year mark of this quarantine, this pandemic experience that we've all been in collectively and also personally, individually, I've been in a real just reflective space about that, about what has this time meant for me, for us, what are what's the state of our heart and our mind, our connections, our motivation, um, at this point, as we kind of enter this, completion of a turning of the seasons cycle, and step into the next. Still with so much uncertainty about the pandemic and about so much of what's going on in the world. We're very much still in a liminal space together. Liminal space is the space in between, when we're no longer what we were, but we're not quite yet what we will be. And it's a space that is really, it can be very challenging to be in, right? Because we've let go of a lot of things. We've let go of, for many of us, a certain sense of safety, security, certainty, whatever that might have looked like in our lives before. We've let go of, some material things, as, financial struggles have come in. We've let go of people, that we've lost in this time. Some of us have let go of ideals, of beliefs about the world in this time. And at the same time, there's so much that's wanting to come in and that has come in that is leading us to what and who we will be as we move into this next cycle. And so I felt it was a potent time to reflect on that, and just to kind of gather up and mine and pull together the whatever the lessons and the learning and the transformation that we can name at this point, as we move into this next cycle. And so as I kind of opened myself to that question, so much started coming through, and I knew there were pieces of it that I wanted to share. And I wanted to start, for whatever reason, the one that's wanting to be shared right now is around loss of purpose, sense of purpose, and the reclaiming of that in a new form. This morning, a woman in one of my communities, a business coaching community that I've been in for the last year and a half, she posted a really beautiful and poignant and vulnerable post about being in this place where she felt like she'd lost her purpose. She wasn't sure, what was the use of doing this anymore, her business, or, whatever it is she's got kind of has been working towards for some time. And, she asked if anybody can relate to that and how she might address that. And I could definitely relate to that, because, I experienced a version of that very early on in this liminal space. And perhaps some of you did too. For me, the way that looked was pretty early on. First of all, my business shut down because I had an in-person business that was non-essential. And so, essential in terms of the states of our hearts and minds and souls, but not essential in terms of government definition of essential services. So there was a physical shutting down of my business, but there was also this like emotional and mental shutting down. I recognized early on that I was really going into this kind of hibernated space, letting go of a lot of, commitments and routines that had been part of, normal life. Um, and really turning the lens inward, turning the lens into myself, to my home, to my immediate family who live here with me. And that, meant a lot of things. But one of the things that it meant was this feeling of loss of purpose. Like, what is the point of doing this work that I've been doing? And, what am I meant to do? And am I meant to do anything at all? There's a lot of like existential stuff that came up from that. But I allowed myself to be in that restful place and that slowed down place and really focus on the land under my feet, reconnecting, rebuilding my relationship with this place, focusing on the garden. I want to share more about what that has taught me in another video. We'll actually go out into the garden and see what it has to say. But I became very aware that there were certain ways in which I was going about my work that I had been for some time, and ways in which I had been developing my work and communicating about it, that in this kind of new space, this liminal space, really felt, almost meaningless, almost. Certainly, I felt confused at what the purpose might be anymore. And that was a scary place to be because I had spent 3 years building that work. It mattered to me. And it was scary to ask myself, what's the point? And it was sad to do that. And I've talked to a number of people who had some version of that experience. And I want to say first that I think that was a very normal experience. I think it was very, not normal in terms of something we experience regularly, but I think it was a very authentic response for many of us to that experience. And I think it was right and good that we asked those questions. I spoke early on, and I made a number of videos early on through my Instagram about my belief and my feeling that inside of the heaviness and difficulty of this time, there was also great opportunity and possibility. It was like percolating under the surface. And I invited, those around me and continually reminded myself to really feel and look for those moments of opportunity. I truly believe, and I have now experienced it in this last year in many, many, many small and sometimes big ways, that there is something absolutely beautiful, many somethings absolutely beautiful that are longing to get born out of this time. For individuals, for families, for communities, for our world. I really believe that. And even inside of all of the difficulty, I still believe that. And so for me, part of this hibernating and shutting down and the sadness and the loss and the grief of like feeling like my work didn't matter and feeling like I didn't know what my purpose was anymore. Even inside of all of that, the paradox was I could also feel this possibility brewing. And I want to just pause right here and just invite us each to take a moment to just tune in to that sense of opportunity and possibility, whatever that looks like for you. And wherever your heart and headspace might be right now around these things, just invite you to, for a moment, turn your attention to possibility and to opportunity, even if it feels impossible given the circumstances. So you can pause this video and take all the time you need for that. And then come on back to me. So I want to share a little bit about some of the tools that helped me to begin to move into not answers to those questions, but moments of revelation around what might be coming. So one of the things that I very intentionally began to work with as, after this period of time of hibernation, and as my business started to come back alive in my heart and my mind, and it felt like, okay, now is the time to start looking back at what is meant to be here, reclaim my purpose or redefine it in some way. And as happenstance would have it, not happenstance, when we turn our attention to something and set an intention for something and open our imagination to something, those are three powerful capacities we have for engaging with energy, with intuition, with collaborating with the energetic world to bring forward what we need, and what we're meant to move into: attention, intention, and imagination. So as I open those things up, around this question of purpose, things in the world started coming that helped guide this. And one of those was a series of posts and videos from another business coach that I follow and appreciate very much, Paul Zelizer. I'll put his information, as well as the other coaching program I'm working on, down below, in case you feel like you could use some support in the realm of, strengthening your business, in the realm of conscious entrepreneurship, and, doing good in the world through your business endeavors. But Paul started posting a series of inquiries around values and around core values, and talking about how important it is for him to articulate his core values in his business, and to not take it for granted that that those things are obvious to other people, but to explicitly articulate them. And the kind of the reciprocal experience of that is when we clearly articulate our values, put them in our website and in our conversations with people in our marketing. And if we're not talking about a business, then, in just how we share about ourselves in the various ways that we do that. When we do that, naturally, the response inside of ourselves is to live more clearly and more specifically into those values. And so more and more, there's this self-generating cycle of articulating what we are about, right? What we value deep inside. And I'm talking about where our personal values, like what I, as a person, having lived 43 years on this planet and having all the experiences I've had, what really matters to me, where those values meet what it is I'm doing in the world, whether that's through my business or through any other endeavor, whether that's through your business or any other endeavor. Where is that intersection between my personal values, what I personally value, what matters to me, and how that gets expressed in my work? And I was inspired by that. And so I went through a process of mining my values, right? And, getting really clear with myself about, what is it that matters to me at this time in my life? And then distilling that down. And I wanted to share a bit of that with you. So this is my initial brainstorm here about my values. And I just let this kind of range all over the place. What are the things that are important to me as a person, as a mom, as a community member? Just let that range all over the place. And then, as you can see, the kind of circles and lines, I started grouping them together, what's related to each other, what, really stands out as being connected. And seeing what sorts of connections wanted to be made. And then from there, I did some reflection, some meditation, some work with my business as almost as an entity, right? Like the work that we do in the world, like almost takes on a life, right? It has a personality. It has, it has a presence in our life, and we build a relationship with our work, right? That has many aspects of, relationships that we might have with people. And so I leaned into that relationship. I used some of my other tools, soul collage, of course, my Reiki practice, which helps me to bring my attention and my intention and my imagination down into my center and to really root into that original place, right? Where my deepest of core values must live, as do yours. And begin to really ask the entity of my business from that place, from that core place, what matters? What really matters? And through an iterative process of doing that, there were kind of three central pieces that really rose to the surface that really do live at that intersection of what matters to me as a person and what matters to my business, matters to the work that I put out in the world, that I devote my time, my energy, and my heart to. And from there, I was able to, it was like this whole other relationship with my business and my work opened up, right? Because all of a sudden we were in sync around what really matters, and what matters not only to me, but what matters to the people who come to me for support. And what I want to call in, who I want to call in around that. And so I'll share them with you. The three values that rose to the surface at this intersection are self-reflection, spiritual practice, and social action. That my work in the world lives at the intersection of those things. Building tools, practices, and capacities to be self-reflective, to truly look inside, to understand, to have a relationship with our own movement through the world, our own beliefs and biases and stories and joys and capacities and talents, right? The ability to be self-reflective and the tools and strategies that help us to truly do that in a way that is comprehensive, that is honoring of the fullness of ourself, that is deeply rooted in who we are, that does not shy away from the difficult parts of ourselves, the parts we might rather not look at, that actually gives us capacity and strategy to look at those places, to integrate those places, to become better people because we've done that. Then spiritual practice, to do those things through the lens of our inherent interconnection to all of life. To do that self-inquiry, that self-reflection from the perspective of a deeply rooted sense that we are not alone because of how intrinsically connected we are with life. And that's a piece that's really saved me during this lonely, lonely time of quarantine. And I hope to make another video about that topic because it's really present for me right now. But to work with that self-reflection from the perspective of spiritual practice, in part to call in resources outside of ourselves and to connect deeply with our ancestors, with the traditions that have supported us for generations, to reconnect with who we are from an ancestral perspective in many different ways. And then to take all that we have gained, all that we have learned, all of the increase of our capacity and our sense of ourselves and our sense of our work in the world, and to turn that into action, to turn that into tiny, all the way up to big actions that we take in the world to help bring about those beautiful things that are longing to be born out of this time and any other time that we live through. social action, social justice, community support, consciousness. We can put lots of names to it, but it's the willingness and the ability to do that internal work and then turn that into leadership from the inside out. Turn that into our unique contribution to the world. And it was really powerful to do that process, to distill it all down to those 3 values. 3 things which have always been important to me, but I had never before really sensed the connections between them and sensed the way in which the alchemy of those 3 actually do represent what I'm about and what I'm here to do in the world. It was really powerful to do that. And as a result, I found myself sourcing much more energy to actually re-engage my business, re-engage my work. I completely rewrote my website. I let go of certain parts of my business that still matter to me and I believe will come back in a new life, in a new form, but right now needed to just kind of rest while I distilled down, focused down. And I'm still in that process of learning what it means to live these 3 values through my work. But it's exciting. It feels really good. It really reawakens for me the desire to really be myself and be out in the world. And that might seem like a weird thing to say if you haven't struggled with that, but much of my career journey has involved some version of believing that I had to hide who I really am in order to do my work. That there wasn't an intersection between who I really am and the work that I do in the world. And that was painful. It was a painful place to live for a long, long time. And so it feels really good to shed that and to realize that the most effective I can be and the most value I can add to my community and to the world is by being fully myself, is by living from my core values and articulating those really clearly in what I do. And so if there's any way in which you are struggling with this question of purpose, if you're looking at any aspect of your life, it doesn't have to be your business or your work, but any aspect of your life and asking this question, why bother? Why does this matter? I would really invite you to do a little bit of work with your core values and find where those things that truly matter to you are reflected or can be more strongly reflected in your life, and where perhaps they are not, right? Where perhaps there are things that are time to be let go, that it's time to send them into the ground to compost and become something new. If you'd like support in that process, I would love to share more. I'd love to learn about that process for you and support you in it. I'd love to hear about your experiences with this time with regard to your sense of your own worth in the world and what you're meant to be doing, what you're meant to be experiencing, how you're meant to be. So share that with me. I would love to hear from you in comments, over email. And let's continue to be in this inquiry together of what it means to navigate our purpose. And if this message, if these inquiries feel valuable to you and you'd like to continue to walk this journey with me, I really invite you to hit the subscribe button on this channel before you leave the studio today. Your comments and your likes just help this material get into more people's hands, to get viewed by more eyes. And before you leave, I invite you to consider what it is that you're navigating today. And whatever that might be, may you be deeply provisioned for that journey. Thanks for hanging out with me for a bit. I appreciate you. Goodbye.